We're here today to talk about the Eddy's Bread ghost sign restoration down on Last Chance Gulch. Eddy's Bread was among those elite signs that had a wide scope. To begin with, it was in all of Montana. If there was a community in Montana, it sold Eddy's Bread. If there was a community in Idaho, it sold Eddy's Bread. And they were as far out as Minnesota. So they had a huge region. And to think that this started from one bakery in downtown Helena on Park Avenue is amazing. Once we whitewash, once we paint over, they're gone forever. And this is a really special period in American history where we had the rise of commercialism. And also, the United States started to gel economically. You know, we had the infrastructure out there. A lot of it was trains and such, but the United States started to become a community about this time. Advertising started to be prominent on outdoor buildings, and that was really a major mode of advertising back then, and lasted well into, I would say, probably the advent of television, because it was really the only visual medium that was out there. So these ghost signs, as they're called, play a large part in community historical significance today. What were once advertising signs has now turned into public art. And so that's a really neat evolution. The more I dug into this, the more interesting it became. And what I found out too was that there are a lot of folks out there who are enamored with these old signs. They have a connection to it in their childhood, or there's a connection there with their families, or a connection with the job. And one of the few parts of Americana that are still around. Now we have we have several signs in Helena, and Butte has several hundred signs. Other cities throughout Montana have similar ghost signs. In fact, probably all communities throughout America, Canada, Europe, have all these signs. And then the big question here is, what do we do with them? Do we let them fade away? Do we ignore them? How do we value them as a community? And that solution was to go up there and restore this thing, but restore it with a patina, antique it, per se, so that when it was all said and done, it doesn't look like a brand new sign. I think that would have been out of place. And so that's what we decided to do. Now we get into basically the technical side of this project. And that being that most surfaces that ghost signs are on brick buildings, or masonry, or some kind of similar stone. This particular building is an aggregate. It's chock full of every kind of stone that you can imagine up there. So it's a very rough surface. So to even paint that sign to begin with took a lot of technique, a lot of expertise, and a lot of patience. Because it's a huge sign. It's huge. And so, the artist to begin with, whoever did it in the beginning knew exactly what they were doing. It's a beautiful sign. Everything was in place. And when you think about that, when you're working with a sign that's visible for, a half a mile, 300 yards, 400 yards, when you start painting it from 5 feet, that is an extraordinary feat. And you really have to pay attention to what you're doing. So, in some regards, Nancy and Jim, the other gentleman that had worked on the project with her up in the basket, had mentioned that, going up there and retracing this sign was easy. That was easy to do. And they commented about how well it was placed, and that whoever had done it really knew their stuff. So this speaks to the craftsmanship, to the artisan value of old sign painters. They knew what they were doing. It was last painted in the 1950s or 60s, late 50s probably. And Mr. O'Connell had commissioned a gentleman by the name of Mr. Hankel here in Helena to look at redoing that sign. So, and I didn't know that at the time. So I think that if we were to pick a sign for Eddy's Bread, this is the one that Eddy would want. First off, it's on one of the most prominent buildings in downtown Helena. The Iron Front Hotel is a National Historic Landmark. It's the gateway to our main street, Last Chance Gulch. And it's an impressive building, very impressive. And we had a staging area right underneath the sign, which we used to hold all the paints, hold all our equipment, take a break, have lunch. We kind of lived there for about 4 days. And looking at the walls in that building, my gosh, I think they're like 3 foot thick. So that building isn't going anywhere. And when the painters did get up on the wall, they were impressed and surprised at how good the building was. It was still in pretty good condition, really, considering it was built in 1888. And one of the first, should we say, skyscrapers in Montana. And so the building itself has tremendous historical significance. The new owners have gone and spruced it up. The front is absolutely gorgeous. And now with the addition to the Eddy's Bread restoration, it looks fresh and clean.
I'm Nancy Bennett, and I'm here with Dan Bennett, who is my husband, and I'm here with Jim Oscom. We happen to be from Iowa, but there are wall dogs all over the world, actually. And we were very fortunate to be contacted about this job. And one of the reasons Jim Oscom is here is he's very knowledgeable about heights and equipment and how to get from the ground to where we need to be on this particular job. And he's very knowledgeable about moving signs, and part of this was moving the hotel sign from the mural and dropping it down and reinstalling it on the side of the building. And he has had lots and lots of experience there. So that's another reason why he is here. And on the projects, you choose the artists that have the best skills for whatever the mural job requires. This particular project has a unique set of challenges, I guess you would say, because it is up 4 stories and it's at the top of a building. We not only have to go up 4 stories, but we have to go up and over an adjoining building. And so working from the street, it has its challenges because we have to figure out how to make people safe in the area, which is traffic and the public, and how to get up that high. And then it's very unique because typically buildings, the masonry buildings that we work on are brick or they are concrete block, and this one is stone masonry, which is highly unusual, or it is in the Midwest where I'm from. So I don't remember working on a stone masonry building before. So it has its own unique qualities that are a bit of a challenge, but it seems to be working out real well. And we are trying to restore the information, but we don't want this to look like a brand new sign. We brushed the loose masonry off the best that we can, and then we just simply washed it with a hose and water and cleaned it up so that it's not dusty to work on. Then we're using a high-grade acrylic paint, water base, and so we're trying to be sympathetic and we're trying to be green at the same time. We're double coating the reds because reds fade faster than other colors. And this sign on this side has lasted longer than the sign on the other side because it's a north-facing wall, and north doesn't get the sun as much. So that's why the information on this wall is better than on the other side of the building. And another thing that we do that you may not notice is that we typically don't use the paint straight out of the container that it comes in. We will mix it or knock it down or dull it a little bit in color by using its complement or other ways of making the paint not look as bright and brand new as if it just came out of the container. So we're going to mix some of the background color of the masonry, like the stone color. We'll mix a color that's close to the stone color, and then we'll come back over the top and hit the high points, and what it will actually look like is that the masonry or the stone's coming through when actually it's paint. We're not distressing the building, or we're not taking any of the masonry away. We've tried to be very sympathetic to the building. We would hate to lose the building for the sake of art. That wouldn't make much sense. So we're trying to be as kind to the building as we can, but yet put the information back so that it'll last a while and give you guys a few more years of enjoyment. Usually when we've been to a town and done some kind of visual art, the neat thing about the Wall Dogs is we're doing the art for the town and about the town. We're not doing the art that we want to do for ourselves. That's the difference between some muralists and the Wall Dogs, because we're doing art about the town. And so it makes a lot of community pride because it's something that people can identify with, that they remember fondly, usually. And so it just creates a lot of smiles all the way around.
What happened here is that we put community art and expanded that. You know, I don't think many people even recognized ghost signs until you know, this project started to hit the local papers and the local media. And so all of a sudden it became something on the front burner, and it became something that the community started to talk about. And that's a good thing, because we are at a crossroads here of we do nothing, they fade away. We go in and preserve them, and they stay as they are. And in this case, we restored it. And the Iron Front is the perfect example of a restoration. Because of that aggregate wall, what tends to happen when Mother Nature is involved is that the wall starts to flake away. And so if you have a ghost sign on a wall like that, it peels off. So the idea of restoring it was the best mode. Restoring the sign brought back a lot of good memories for a lot of good people. Their lives, their livelihoods, careers, family, and a darn good employee in working for Eddy's Bread. And Mr. O'Connell, Eddy O'Connell, I think was a great employer.